Hello, this is week one of the course, and this week we'll be looking at two major concepts, world religions and worldview. But to keep these videos short, I will make two videos for this week. So this first one is an intro just to world religions. And when we say world religions, we really should be saying major world religions or major non-Christian world religions, because the world is full of religions, not just a handful that we're covering in this class. There are dozens, in fact, really hundreds of small religions, most of them in Africa and Asia. Many of those are loosely fit under the term animism, but we'll cover that more next week, so that will help when you're dealing with some of those. But more importantly, the way we're approaching the topic in this quad will help equip you to engage in whatever you might encounter in the future. Despite people who claim to be atheists, let's see here. Despite people who claim to be atheists, really they're just people who worship themselves, to be honest. Because religion is a universal urge in mankind, because we were created for a relationship with our Creator. We were created to worship. And so one way or another, man will find something or someone to worship. Whether it's through a formal religion or otherwise, humans reach for and grope to find something to worship. We see a beautiful example of this when we look at the Apostle Paul in Athens, and we look at Acts chapter 17. I'll read it for you, starting verse 22. So Paul, standing in the midst of the Areopagus, said, "Men of Athens, I perceive that you in every way are very religious. For as I passed along, I observed the objects of your worship, and I found an altar with this inscription, to the unknown God. What therefore you worship as unknown, this I proclaim to you. The God who made the world and everything in it, being Lord of heaven and earth, does not live in temples made by man, nor is he served by human hands as though he had need of anything, since he himself gives all of mankind life and breath and everything else. And we are made, and he made from one man every nation of mankind to live under all the face of the earth, having determined allotted periods and the boundaries of their dwelling place, that they should seek God and perhaps feel their way towards him and find him. Yet he is actually not far from any of us, for, quote, in him we live and move and have our being. As even one of your own prophets have said, we are indeed his offspring." Remember, Paul was preaching to a group of idol-worshiping pagans. They were Athenians. They were some philosophical sect in Athens, but they were idol-worshiping pagans. There's so much here we could unpack, but this is just the beginning here. So we're going to stick to what we need to be looking at for the course. The point I want to make is that Paul believed that lost humans would be drawn to God, because indeed he is actually not so far from each one of us, for in him we live and move and have our being. Let's keep moving. So much more I could say about that, but let's keep moving. I'm sure you've read the syllabus by now, and you have seen that we will be covering four major non-Christian religions: Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Sikhism, as well as two of what I call religious clusters, that is animism and the idea of pluralism, and get a lot more into those later. Often we think of major religions each as having their own geographic location, as in some kind of, say, area of spiritual stronghold. In fact, one of the motivations that got my family to the field many years ago was this concept called the 1040 window. Now that idea has faded now, but its heyday, the idea helped a number of evangelicals get to the field, and a large chunk of the evangelical church began to understand that those who are hardest to reach were roughly located in a kind of geographic band across one section of the earth, say between the 10 and 40 degrees northern latitude. Now, the 1040 window concept is really overly simplistic, and it has a few other problems that we don't have time to get into, but it still has helped advance the gospel greatly, because it got people to understand that there are chunks of the earth, there are peoples, bands of peoples who are not hearing the gospel. An important thing that I hope you'll catch in one of the videos is that you should have, you're going to see this in one of the videos you'll watch for the course, is that you need to have respect when we engage with people in other religions. I'm going to be honest, this is a problem area for many American missionaries, especially when they first go to the field. Way too often, young missionaries, or not just young, but particularly young missionaries, look down on the people they're trying to reach. Now, I don't say they do that openly, but you can hear it, you can see it. They feel like our culture is better than the one that they've been sent to. They look down on village life as primitive and dirty. Now, they'd never say that to anyone, but the way they act, the way they live, the way they do things give it away. Um, yeah, I could tell a lot of stories. I won't for time. Now I'll tell you one. I remember being with some missionaries one time. They were young, short-term missionaries, and we were out in a village, and the host, the person we were visiting, offered to give us all tea. And as people were starting to drink their tea, one missionary reached over in his backpack and pulled out a little water bottle and started sipping from his water bottle. And the house owner said, "Hey, do you not like tea?" He said, "Well, no, I just need water for hygiene purposes." Wrong. Why would you say that? Boiled water's safe. Why would you even say that? But anyhow, um, another thing that missionaries often give away is their view of the local religion. You see, they might just view it as being not just wrong, but actually demonic. Now, this is where it gets real tricky, okay? Because yes, any religion that blinds men and women from seeing the beauty of Christ crucified is in fact part of a demonic deception. Okay, we're going to talk a lot more about that next week. But that does not mean that all the people involved are themselves demonic. The demonic world is real, and that involvement in blinding men's eyes so they can't see the gospel is real. But that doesn't mean the people of Islam or the people who are worshiping that idol over there are themselves demonic. You see, religion is a form of man reaching out to try to find God on his own. Okay. Or as Paul said, going back to in Athens, he said their pagan religion was allowed by God so that they should seek God and perhaps feel their way towards him and find him. Yet he's not actually so far from any one of us. That's verse 27 in Acts 17. So when I see Hindus dunking themselves in the holy Ganges River, I see two things. Number one, I see people desperate to try to find God. They know that water is dirty. They know there's bodies being burned in that river. I've actually watched them incinerating bodies on platforms where they're doing their final rites, a quarter mile uphill, and then kicking those bodies off in the water, and then people down here dunking themselves in the water to try to obtain some kind of forgiveness, some kind of closeness with God. They're not unaware that bodies are being thrown in the river up above them. It's just more important to them to be in the Ganges holy river. So I see two things. I see people desperate to find God when they dunk themselves in the Ganges, but I also see demons laughing at them because they know that they're using the false ideas of Hinduism to blind people and keep them very far away from God. In other words, we have to cultivate both respect for others' way of life, including many parts of their religion, the parts that are respectable. And at the same time, we must maintain a deep spiritual anger at the lies that blind them from seeing the truth. Well, I think I better stop there because I'm just about ready to get preaching, and I'm trying to keep these videos intentionally short. You got some great readings. Yeah, you're going to learn so much in the readings. Please take time to really read and read well, even if you got to reread some portions, because this is phenomenal thinkers that you're reading from. I think what I've said now, though, is enough to get you started thinking about major world religions. And as I said, I'll have another video that you'll be watching later that has to do with the concept of worldview. And remember, my Zoom room is open on Thursdays, 10 to 11 a.m. in the Central Time Zone. So I'd love to visit you there and chat with you, 10 to 11 a.m. Central Time Zone on Thursdays. All right. God bless.